David, and this is going to be a two-part series on Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is an alternative digital currency that you can use. It does not involve the central banks, and it does instead have networks instead of a central administrator. Because there is no central bank or single administrator, it can be transferred from one user to another without the need for an intermediary. Its decentralized nature allows it to grow exponentially in value, and people are interested in its potential to revolutionize the way we do business and pay bills. However, the cryptocurrency is also an important security risk and should be used cautiously. A lot of people are worried about the cost, especially if you make a big purchase. However, some vendors sell fractional Bitcoin, so you don't have to worry about the high cost of purchasing Bitcoin. Transactions also have long valuation time, taking anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. Regardless of your budget, buying Bitcoin is a safe and secure way to store your money and make purchases online. There are even special accounts called Bitcoin IRAs where you can hold your digital currency. Bitcoin is similar to the internet for money. The internet is open, borderless, and a global phenomenon. Users can transfer money across borders and across the world, allowing them to be free of trusted intermediaries. The decentralized nature of Bitcoin is a key feature that allows it to be used in a number of ways, including as a means of exchange. The potential for a decentralized financial system is immense, and risks are low compared to those of traditional financial markets. Right? Bitcoin might not seem like the easiest way. It does have a value. It is a virtual form of money, and its characteristics are similar to those of traditional money. It is secure, portable, and divisible. It allows for transactions of all sizes. If it is possible to buy and sell Bitcoin through an online exchange, there are several exchange sites such as Coinbase. Actually, I will have a link to Coinbase down in the description of this video if you would like to get on Coinbase and utilize looking into Bitcoin from Coinbase. The process is easy. These exchanges store your virtual currency using public and private keys. Bitcoin has a high volatility and is not suitable for investors who are not willing to take a risk. As alternative traditional currencies, Bitcoin are subject to opinions of influential people and can grow off of small individuals. For example, an Apple stock is valued by its supply and demand ratio, while Bitcoin is valued by the opinion of influential figures. A new technology, a new technological advancement may actually play a role into how Bitcoin is transferred and viewed. So a new technological advancement may lead to a virtual coin. You should always research the risk before investing your money in a cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is a revolutionary type of currency. It is a form of decentralization, which means it can be moved from one person to another without a middleman. Because Bitcoin is a purely decentralized currency, it is difficult to ban it or fraud it. Because of this, it has a potential to be extremely valuable. This is why people are eager to invest in Bitcoin. With a little patience, you can make money by mining it. A Bitcoin is a digital currency created without the intervention of a central bank, like we discussed. America's monetary system is run by the Federal Reserve. The creator, Nakamoto, published a white paper outlining his vision of the world where people make payments electronically without a bank or PayPal. In the wake of the global financial crisis, deregulation of the financial sector inspired him to create Bitcoin, a currency with a huge following and is growing in leaps and bounds. Bitcoin is a great way to make money. In addition to being convenient, easy to store value, Bitcoins can be traded for goods, services, and other assets. It is also highly secure and can be used for many types of transactions. It's easy to buy Bitcoin through an online exchange. With a Coinbase account, you can securely store and send the currency. You can also track your transactions, through the use of public and private keys. And Bitcoin's value is dependent on the market. If the price fluctuates in the market and the opinions of the influential people change, that makes Bitcoin an extremely risky investment. This is a good investment for high-risk investors as they can potentially lose a lot of money. It's also a good way to make money on the internet. It has a number of other uses. Unlike stocks, cryptocurrencies have a very high volatility and generally are unsuitable for long-term investing. So keep that in mind if you're going to invest in Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. the risk is going to be high. If you would like to look into something more conservative, maybe have a diverse portfolio. Okay, let's talk about Bitcoin in the digital age. Bitcoin in the digital age is gaining popularity as it is a central bank, or without a central bank or administrator. It is a peer-to-peer network where you can send and receive Bitcoins without any middleman. This means you can use Bitcoins to make purchases, pay bills, send money to friends and family, etc. The network has no administrators or central bank, and there's no central servers or banks to oversee the transactions. In addition, you can send and receive Bitcoins without a third party, which makes it a very safe way to transact. Bitcoin works similar to the internet. It's purely digital, borderless, round the clock. That means it's very easy to share information and data. Since it's an internet currency, it's easy to issue and secure Bitcoins and send them to anyone else. Once you have the address, you can send it to anyone you want and to accept it from anyone else. That means that you can make a purchase from anywhere without ever having to leave your home. It's free, it's safe, and easy to use. This cryptocurrency is a form of peer-to-peer network. It does carry unique properties. It is a convenient way to store value online, and it can be used for any transaction, from small purchases to charitable donations. Microsoft, Expedia, both accept Bitcoin. This means you can spend your money anywhere without having to worry about the government regulations. Now, that's going to be a big deal because as investors, we always want to keep an eye on what the government's doing with our taxes and how they're taxing our investments and what we can do to keep a level eye on that playing field. So that's where Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies have a role and a value in the system today. We don't know where this is going to be in 5 years, but for right now, in the current time, and the way the wave's looking, in the next 5 years, you will see a growth in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies for that very reason alone. Okay, moving on. It allows you to exchange value with anyone in the world without a middleman, like we discussed earlier, because it's native to the internet. It's easy to transfer from one place to another. This makes it safe and an efficient way to move money around the world. It's entirely legal and can be used for any transaction. You can even buy your Bitcoins at an online exchange such as Coinbase. Again, that's going to be linked in the description of this video and part 2 video. Okay. Um, if you don't understand Bitcoin, it's a useful way to store value online. Think of it that way. It can be traded for goods and services and easy to store. It's also safe to exchange in small amounts, allowing people to transfer and receive it freely. Using a digital exchange is the easiest way to buy Bitcoin. Just enter the amount you wish to send or receive and click buy. Once you have your Bitcoins, you can send them throughout anywhere in the world to anyone in the world. The first step in using Bitcoin is to buy it. There are many ways you can do this. You can buy Bitcoins directly from a person or exchange. There's now ATMs. You can use Bitcoin in an online exchange. You can do it through an online wallet, which stores it in a separate wallet. By using a cryptocurrency wallet, you can send and receive cryptocurrencies through a variety of means, including electronic mail. You can also use Bitcoins to make payments and receive gifts. Bitcoin is an alternative to traditional currencies. It can be very difficult to understand, but it's a good way to store value. There are several ways to do this. If you're selling a product or a service, you can use Bitcoin to make a purchase, but you must be careful not to sell it yourself. It's easy to lose your money and the prices fluctuate wildly, so it's best to keep track of it. Bitcoin is a great way to store value in a safe and convenient way when it's easy to exchange for goods and services and other assets. You can buy Bitcoin through an online exchange. Again, Coinbase, like I will have linked in the description. It's a great exchange for you to store your Bitcoins using a public or private key. You can use the address to make transactions with friends and family. That means you can give out your private key to anyone. This is an important security feature in Bitcoin. You can buy Bitcoin with your credit card, your debit card, or other payment methods. Just like any other payment method, it's easy to use with a high degree of privacy. The price of Bitcoins is determined by the amount of money you have. The debit card is a virtual currency that is easy to send and receive. You can make use of it to make purchases and store value. There are some disadvantages, though, with Bitcoin. So we're going to talk about the blockchain technology and where blockchain technology fits in with Bitcoin. So let's go ahead and move forward. What is blockchain technology? Think of it like this. The games that feature elements based on cryptographic blockchain technologies, we're going to discuss some of that. So there's Bitcoin, which has many advantages over other currencies. These gamers have extreme amounts of fun and play with elements that are unique to the blockchain. So these blockchains are going to be blocks that are going to be stacked and chained and linked together. You can try your hand at these games. If they're right for you, you can also use these games as a learning tool. Listed, we're going to talk about cryptography based on blockchain technology. So thinking of it of the game of going up levels, that's kind of what we're looking at the blockchain. You get your cryptocurrency and it's chained together. This is a way to keep track of it. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward. The blockchain is not limited to financial transactions, as many applications that aren't immediately apparent. The biggest benefit to the reduction of processing is time. The parties that are involved in the transaction, there's less time and energy spent on it. This is especially useful for cross-border transactions where time zones can affect how quickly a check is deposited into a bank account. The blockchain ensures that no one can charge or modify an exchange's record of past transactions, which makes it idea for cross-border trades. Another benefit of the blockchain, using the blockchain for your business, is the speed. When placing a transaction through a central authority, the transaction can take several days to settle. This can be frustrating for those trying to deposit a check. It might not show up until Monday morning. However, the blockchain transactions are within minutes and they are considered secure after just a few hours. The speed of blockchain transactions are especially essential and useful for cross-border trades where payments processing is delayed by time zones. Okay, let's take a look at our time. Let's go ahead and continue. Um, Blockchains allow for transparency. The blockchain is a shared computer that can be accessed by anyone. It has the ability to serve as a single source of truth for the information and can execute workflows that involve many parties. Reconciliation make this an ideal platform for digital business. The technology will continue to evolve, but banks are the leading adopters. The banks are trying to get in first among the use of the blockchain in their businesses. Manufacturers are seeing the benefits, and potential smart contracts and tracking materials are being added to businesses every day. Using a blockchain in businesses, governments are also increasing and using the technology to improve their services. Estonia has now adapted a digital identity through the blockchain. This helps reduce identity fraud and costs associated with maintaining a national identity. The benefits of the process are enormous for both individuals and companies, but the cost of the adoption is often the deciding factor for companies. It's always better safe than sorry, and a smart startup might have a few more options than a big corporation because you have that flexibility to be vulnerable. So really, when you're running a business, whether you're small or big, there's things to consider. With the blockchain, it's still cryptocurrency-based technology, so it's a risk. So these are things you have to consider as you jump into blockchain technology. Okay, traditionally, data storage has been difficult to trace. IBM's food uses blockchain technology to track the movement of food and other products in its supply chains. It has also made it possible for farmers to track their products. The use of blockchain companies can avoid wasting money and reducing the risk of fraud. They can even use it to monitor their employees and protect their reputation. Ultimately, this is what it means to be in the middle of the future. In addition to these new technologies, the blockchain has many other applications. The technology is a shared computer that is accessible to everyone, and everyone can use it with ownership, events, and activities. This is a system that can be used to execute a workflow involving multiple parties. In addition to these, it can be used to store any kind of data. Mitchell Clark created a blockchain to store the text for The Great Gatsby. Whether it's a book, film, video, the blockchain can help to access it. It's still an important part of business. It's already many have started incorporating it into their organizations. It's quickly growing and it will help companies stay ahead of their competitors. The technology is highly secure. The digital identity reference that makes the transaction between two parties instantaneous and secure. In addition, it uses encryption to ensure the sensitive data stays secure and it's harder to steal. It also uses an authentication to ensure that the transaction is legitimate. Okay, blockchain is used by a number of industries. Its main application is in the banking industry because it uses public and private keys. Blockchain allows users to use their information. It can also help speed up transactions, which we discussed earlier, and we will discuss a little bit more in part 2. The benefits of this technology are unlimited, but they do have a few disadvantages. It's not a substitute for a bank. For instance, banks can't use banks can't use it for credit transactions. The technology is only used for in banking, but this can be used in other fields. So that's going to do it for part one. We will be back for part two of the breakdown of Bitcoin. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon. Hi, this is David, and this is going to be part two of a breakdown of Bitcoin, how to use Bitcoin, what it means, and how you can get started using Bitcoin today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. How are Bitcoin transactions recorded? Bitcoin is a currency backed by the power of computers. The privacy it offers is a huge selling point, and many people use it as a safe haven for private information. Even if you get scammed and are forced to return your money, you can still maintain your anonymity and don't have to worry about the identity of the person stealing the money. This is a feature that makes currency a safe haven for many online businessmen. So when you're using Bitcoin, and the idea of having this security is great. It's a great currency safe haven for many online businessmen for that point. Bitcoin is a great account in a physical form. The entire ledger is stored on a network of nodes. The transaction records are constantly updated by all the Bitcoin network nodes. It can be viewed in block explorers. The public and private keys are the public, oh, excuse me, there we go. The public and private keys are used for identification, and a private key authorizes the transfer of value. Anybody with a private key can access Bitcoin and complete transactions. However, not everyone can access the feature. Okay, now a Bitcoin is going to consist of multiple inputs and outputs. It's only valid when the input's greater than the output. Alice signs a message containing the details of a transaction. The message contains the input, the output, and the amount. The message is broadcast to the rest of the Bitcoin network, which checks that private and public keys are identical, and then the private and public keys match. Anyone with both keys can use Bitcoin, so you must ensure that the two are identical. When a transaction is processed, let's say that again. When a transaction is processed, the transaction requires a private and public key. These keys, the two most important parts of the Bitcoin system. They ensure that the transactions are created, propagated on a network, validated, and added to the blockchain. A transaction encoded the transfers between the two participants. The transaction is then broadcast to the network, included in the blockchain. Anyone with a private key can access the Bitcoin. If you have both keys, you should ensure that your wallet application is updated and safe. A Bitcoin transaction is not a real currency. It's a simple digital currency that's decentralized and not regulated by any single government or bank. It's distributed, decentralized, and highly secure. Whenever you make a payment, your wallet automatically calculates the fee for you. Okay? So each of these verified by the network, and they are recorded. That means you won't have to worry about the security of your financial information. It's not possible to steal Bitcoin. A valid Bitcoin transaction is recorded in a Bitcoin ledger. A Bitcoin transaction is sent to any node in the Bitcoin network. Once it's been confirmed, it propagates to other nodes and becomes part of the network. Each valid transaction has a unique address that is unique to the owner. The wallet would also record the recipient's Bitcoin wallet address. This way, no one can steal your funds. The blockchain will keep track of your payment. The transaction will be recorded on a public log. The network will verify the seller and the buyer are the same person. It is impossible to trace a Bitcoin transaction back to the source. The privacy of the digital currency is one of the best selling points. The anonymity of the system makes it a popular choice for illicit activities, including illegal drugs and human trafficking. So we have to watch out for that. It's not regulated by any country and mostly unregulated. Some countries are considering regulations and taxation in the future. So keep in mind, if you do get on cryptocurrency in the future, because of the deregulation and the abuse, this is something that countries are looking to try to figure out how to get their hands involved in. I'm not going to say if that's good or bad. That is just something for you to keep in mind as you make your own decisions on your investments. All right? Let's go back to the idea of inputs and outputs. It will be valid when your inputs are greater than your outputs. A valid transaction will propagate exponentially across a network. So the more it spreads, the better. The Bitcoin wallet should check carefully to avoid incurring additional fees. In fact, some wallets overpay Let's go ahead and take a second to recap Bitcoin. Part one and most of part two has already been given to you. What you want to keep in mind is Bitcoin is not regulated. It is a peer-to-peer network of computers based off of a concept of nodes where you have a private and a public key. You transfer funds through the use of these keys. It's untraceable to the source. These items are secure, and it's a really great way to avoid issues with taxation. So Bitcoin's got a lot of great value. That said, it has been hard to trace because of that. There could be some illicit activities like human trafficking or whatnot. So we want to keep an eye on specific issues of this nature to make sure that we have we have some good regulation as far as what's going on with the illicit activities. But for businessmen and women who are just trying to abide by what the options are at the table, Bitcoin can be very reliable and easy to use. Its speed is fantastic. We don't have to worry about the time zone differences. There's a lot of great things you can do with the wallet, and there's a risk, and that's something that everyone needs to keep in mind when they get into this type of venture, is to keep in mind the risk. So let's go ahead and finish the lecture. This is going to be the rest of part two on Bitcoin. So it's not an ordinary cash transaction. While it may seem like a simple process, it can also be risky. If you are risk adverse, you shouldn't invest in Bitcoin. It's a rival to traditional currency. It may, again, be used for illegal activities, but of this, some governments have already banned it. The New York State Department of Financial Services finalized its rule on Bitcoin in 2015 for companies that have more than $10,000 worth of Bitcoin transactions that they must comply with the new regulations. So let's talk about who created Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a digital currency that eliminates the need for third parties when making and receiving payments. It's decentralized network allows for individuals all over the world to store their money without a need for a central bank or a trusted party. Bitcoin is going to be that network. It's a digital ledger that is updated regularly, has a digital ledger, and added to each block. We're talking about the blockchain. It looks like a new block is created within every 10 minutes. In January of 2009, an entrepreneur named Craig Wright claimed to be the inventor of Bitcoin, but there is another shadowy inventor of cryptocurrency, Nakamoto, Satoshi Nakamoto, and he did thank everyone who helped launch the project. The question is, should Bitcoin's creator be revealed? Here's some questions you should ask. Is it worth revealing the identity? Would governments want to sue you? In 2008, called Father of Bitcoin, Nakamoto appeared on Cryptography, the mailing list. He outlined the concept of peer-to-peer digital currency that was decentralized and transparent. The white paper outlined the fundamentals of cryptography, secure peer-to-peer electronic payment systems. This technology was revolutionary in development in cryptocurrencies field, and it really took the cryptocurrency field and it return financial power to the individuals. Bitcoin's creator has also remained anonymous. There's no way to trace the person responsible for creating Bitcoin exactly. Even if it's Nakamoto, he has remained a mystery. The inventor of Bitcoin may prefer to keep his identity secret, since revealing his identity would surely draw attention to governments and the media. The creation of this innovative technology could pose a significant threat to the system of sovereign fiat currencies. The author of the white paper may wish to remain anonymous because the invention could potentially harm the current economic and political system. Bitcoin's creator has remained anonymous, thus has become a celebrity in cryptocurrency, the community. His celebrity in the crypto community, with the white paper details and the origins of the workings of Bitcoin, outlined its purpose and launched it on the internet. The white paper, which is anonymous, was published by an unnamed figure in 2008. The virtual icon in the cryptocurrency industry. There's no one really associated as the Bitcoin creator, so his identity is not publicly known. Despite that, Nakamoto is now a pseudonym, and the white paper was written by a mysterious entity that was initially published anonymously in the outing of the workings of Bitcoin. The white paper was written by unknown figure, anonymous throughout the years. The author of the document is the only one known to have authored it. Its authors may want to remain anonymous to avoid any publicity. They may also want to remain anonymous to protect their identity. As of now, no one knows who created Bitcoin. There are many theories on who created the cryptocurrency, but the most widely accepted version is that it was invented by a computer programmer named Nakamoto, and he is the pseudonym for the person who writes the white paper. However, the author is truly anonymous and it's not possible to get his identity. But if the person is anonymous, the idea of the invention is still worth considering. Okay. And the creator of Bitcoin, we know, a mysterious figure who has never been identified. The identity is speculated as a PhD in the past, but there is no evidence of this. Instead, the creator is just the pseudonym individual who studied the technology and introduced it in 2008. The name was later made public as secret, as the real person behind it may not be a real person. Bitcoin is anonymous, and the first block of Bitcoin was mined January 3rd, 2009. A few weeks later, the first transaction was made. During this period, the blockchain was only accessible to miners, and no one knew who that was. As a result, Nakasuma's identity was considered a myth. Until now, there has been no reports of him. It's still unclear whether he will ever reveal his identity, but we have the first clue from his anonymous statement. Okay. Next question and next information about Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin anonymous? Okay, let's take a look at our time and we are good. You may have heard on the news about the currency of Bitcoin, but few are aware of how it works. So let's go ahead and recap. It's a digital currency developed in 2009, and it has since become one of the most popular online currencies. It is a great way to send and receive money across the world. Its popularity has led to several imitations, including Facebook and Google, but remains the most popular and valuable cryptocurrency on the market cap. Let's look how it works and how it's changed the financial world. While Bitcoin has several advantages, one of its many notable qualities is its anonymity. You can send and receive Bitcoin. Excuse me, let's rephrase that. You can send and receive Bitcoin anonymously without revealing your identity to other users. Although it may not be possible to achieve perfect anonymity, it is acceptable. It's an acceptable level of anonymity. I'm going to try to work on saying that. While sending or receiving virtual currency, it's similar to writing under a pseudonym, and the contents can be linked to your true identity. Because of this, original Bitcoin white paper recommends that you use a different address for each transaction. Okay. Another major factor in Bitcoin is its anonymous nature. Unlike cash, a single Bitcoin transaction can be done anonymously. In fact, the transaction ledger is public and thus open to anyone with internet connection. In addition, let's go ahead and keep going. Bitcoin's ability to support a variety of activities make it ideal for illicit and malicious activities, but there are some drawbacks as well. If you're worried about being tracked, don't use it. Unlike cash, Bitcoin is not prone to identity theft. However, it still can be used for illegal activities, and that drawback is a little bit of a low level of privacy because of the ability to have it online. Don't disclose your identity if you are concerned about that. You can send money anonymously to any person in the world and no one will know who you are. Aside from being anonymous, Bitcoin also doesn't charge access fees. So it's safer than cash in a way, but it has its pros and cons. So you want to think about some of the things we just discussed about the anonymous ways of Bitcoin. Okay, as a cryptocurrency, while a single person can have multiple crypto addresses, they are not necessarily the person behind them. The idea is to send and receive virtual cryptocurrencies anonymously. Unlike cash, there's no central authority or bank that can track transaction. This way, if one of your friends uses Bitcoin, you don't have to worry about them getting caught. It's a good way that that's why you shouldn't have to worry about being tracked by someone. Another disadvantage of Bitcoin, though, is that it's anonymous, and that's an advantage and disadvantage. Each person can have many different crypto addresses. Each one is linked to a person, which means a person can send and receive money without revealing their identity. Moreover, there is no need to send and receive money with Bitcoin. In fact, if you want to make transactions anonymously, you just need a new crypto address for each transaction. Bitcoin does, though, have a number of benefits. The first And again, we just talked about the drawback. One of the first benefits is it's anonymous. There's no names associated with a Bitcoin address. The other is you don't have to reveal your identity. It's also a very secure form of payment. It is difficult for any third party to trace the money you send and receive. Unlike other currencies, it's easy to detect fake currency. It's safe. It's a safe way to send and receive money in a transparent manner. Okay, let's take a look at time. We have a little bit left. Okay. Excuse me. We're going to go ahead and continue. The biggest benefit of Bitcoin may be its anonymous behavior. The only thing you have to do with Bitcoin is exchange with other Bitcoins. This way, it will prevent a third party from tracing your identity, but you don't have to give your name because you're anonymous in any. Yep, let me rephrase that. You don't have to give your name because you're anonymous in any other way. For example, you can use the same address to buy and sell goods. This will make it impossible to trace the money. The only difference between a Bitcoin and a real currency is the type of encryption that it uses. So to recap that, Bitcoin is truly anonymous because the address is unique. It's impossible for the other person to know who is sending the money, but the best part is that it's anonymous. In fact, a Bitcoin address can be anonymous. It is like writing under a pseudonym. It's impossible to link to a person with a Bitcoin address, and that's what makes it so special. The original Bitcoin white paper recommended a new address for every transaction. All right, we're going to go ahead and discuss one more. Are there other cryptocurrencies besides Bitcoin? And this will be the closeout and finalization of part two. Okay. Yes. Excuse me. Let's go ahead and continue. Because there's no centralized bank or administrator, the system is completely decentralized. Instead, Bitcoin can be sent to person to person using a peer-to-peer network and eliminates the need for a middleman to send payments. All this is why there are other cryptocurrencies at hand that see the advantages that Bitcoin provide. How Bitcoin works is that a single individual can use a single computer to send and receive funds. This eliminates the need for intermediaries. One of the biggest advantages of Bitcoin is that it can be transferred from one place to another without any hassles. It makes it convenient for traveling, for saving money, exchanging fees. Also, Bitcoin is not tied to any specific country, so you can convert it into local currencies without much effort, without much hassle. Unlike traditional currencies, you can send it anywhere in the world without the need for a third party. Users can spend their coins by buying and selling land, clothing, and other virtual goods. Because of this, people can use Bitcoin to make purchases at online stores, shops, pay for travel, etc. While the number of vendors accepting Bitcoins is still small, the number of websites accepting it is continuing to grow. Large names in the US already accept Bitcoin, including Microsoft, PayPal, Whole Foods, and some others. Some realtors may even accept Bitcoin, such as restaurants, especially food markets. Although Bitcoin is unregulated, there are many alternatives, including ADA coins and Monero. Why these currencies are similar to Bitcoin, they differ in a lot of ways. Some are different consensus mechanisms and have low volatility and designed for different purposes. But they all share the same benefits and advantages in the overall picture. They are on, let's go ahead and restate that. They share the same benefits and advantages. They are an alternative to conventional currencies, which can't be transferred from one person to another. You can send and receive funds anywhere in the world with no intermediaries, but let's say that again. With these cryptocurrencies, you can send and receive funds anywhere in the world with no intermediaries. The underlying technology of Bitcoin is similar to that of the internet's currency. Its popularity is based on the centralized nature of Bitcoin and decentralized marketing, making it easier to transfer funds to and from different people. It can be exchanged to other forms of currency. However, it can only be used as an investment. If you want to use Bitcoin as a form of money, you must be willing to deal with many different people. Why Bitcoin is an investment, it can be used for purchases, including buying and selling. A small percentage of vendors accept Bitcoin, but major companies like PayPal and Microsoft do. It's worth noting that Bitcoin is not regulated as other currencies, that there are certain requirements for accepting Bitcoin, including that you should be aware of some that are trying to bring about tax consequences. A white paper is not a currency, but a document that explains the basic operations of Bitcoin and its usage. Bitcoin is definitely one of the most popular cryptocurrencies in the world. It's definitely the big gun, the big shot. The concept behind cryptocurrencies is a decentralized network that allow people to send and receive from any country in the world. It is an underlying technology that makes cryptocurrencies possible. While the system isn't perfect, it does have a lot of advantages. Unfortunately, it has disadvantages like used for criminal activity. A person can make a transaction with Bitcoin into another account within seconds. Bitcoin has been used since 2009 to purchase and is quick and easy. It's a digital currency exchange for consumer goods. Thousands of cryptocurrencies have been created and are now available. Despite their anonymity, Bitcoin is the most popular digital currency in the market capitalization. But despite that, it is the most used current crypto today as a currency. It does not have as many benefits as other cryptocurrencies. That said, it is the most popular and continue to be the most widely used in the future as far as we can tell. Many people in the US have chosen Bitcoin as an alternative investment for their portfolio, while many vendors are accepting Bitcoin. It's still small and still early, but it's a valuable asset for the larger investor. Some of the big names in the US, we talked about Whole Foods, Microsoft, PayPal, some local websites are accepting it. I even can accept it on my local website. You may be able to use it to purchase and make payments. So there you go. That is going to be a detailed, very detailed breakdown of Bitcoin, history behind it, uses, how it works, and some of the other crypto technology such as the blockchain, and how that all plays a role with Bitcoin. If you have questions, please write them down. Go ahead and use Coinbase, the link in the description, so you can get started on Bitcoin today, and I will see you very soon.